Lou Brock, one of the greatest players to ever wear the birds on the bat, and one of baseball's all-time great base stealers, passing away September 6th, 2020. Tonight, we look back at his life and legacy on Remembering Lou, a tribute to Lou Brock. Hello, everyone. I'm Dan McLaughlin. Over the course of the next half hour, we will hear from many of Lou's former teammates, fellow Hall of Famers, and see many of his great highlights in his wonderful career. But before we do that, let's take a look back at the career of number 20, Hall of Famer Lou Brock. Lou Brock, one of baseball's best base stealers and one of the kindest gentlemen to ever wear the birds on the bat. Born in El Dorado, Arkansas, and raised in Louisiana, Brock was one of 9 children. He was a standout pitcher, an outfielder in high school. He had to battle his way onto the Southern University baseball team in Baton Rouge, and during his junior year, led the team to the NAIA championship. Brock signed with the Chicago Cubs in 1960, and after winning the Northern League batting championship in 1961, he made his big league debut with the Chicago Cubs on September 10, 1961. Brock spent parts of 4 seasons in the Windy City, hitting .257 and stealing 50 bases in 327 games with the Cubs. On June 15, 1964, Brock was part of one of the most famous trades in baseball history. The Brock for Broglio deal sent Ernie Broglio to the Cubs and Lou Brock to the Cardinals. Brock hit .348, stole 33 bases in 103 games with the eventual 1964 World Champion Cardinals, and his runnin' Redbirds career took off. Beginning in 1965, the base burglar swiped 50 or more bases in 12 consecutive seasons, led the National League in stolen bases 8 times, including a then Major League record 118 in 1974. Brock finished his career with 938 stolen bases, passing Ty Cobb for most all-time.
And this is it, folks. Brock has now stolen 893.
Brock made his first career All-Star appearance in 1967 and finished top 10 in MVP voting 5 times. In 1967, Sweet Lou made his second appearance in the Fall Classic, collecting 12 hits and 7 stolen bases for the World Champions. A year later, he hit .464 during the World Series, with another 7 stolen bases for the NL champion Cardinals. Brock's .391 career batting average in the World Series is the best all time, and his 14 stolen bases are tied for most ever in World Series play. During his latter years in baseball, Brock continued his excellence both on and off the field. He won the Roberto Clemente Award in 1975 and made his 5th of 6 appearances in the All-Star game. The aging All-Star struggled in 1978, but bounced back in 1979 to win the Comeback Player of the Year. And on August 13, 1979, he made history.
3,000 for Lou Brock.
Brock became the 14th member of the 3,000 hit club, doing so against his old team, the Chicago Cubs. The base burglar's number 20 was retired on September 9th of that season, becoming the 4th Cardinal to receive that honor. Brock is currently the Cardinals' all-time leader in stolen bases and is second to Stan the Man in games, hits, and runs scored. In 1985, he was inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame in his first year on the ballot.
Today, by being inducted into Baseball Hall of Fame has allowed me to take the low points of my career and turn them into the high points of a lifetime.
Following his playing career, Brock spent time as a broadcaster for the Cardinals, and in 1994 became a special instructor for the organization. He also lent his name to the well-known Brock umbrella. The Hall of Famer dealt with a number of health issues late in life, but often could be seen at Busch Stadium with that famous red jacket and hearing chants of Lou. Sweet Lou Brock, one of the all-time greats in Cardinal history. What a magical career for one of the all-time great Cardinals.
the amazing numbers of 19 Major League seasons for the base burglar, Lou Brock. Over 3,000 hits, second all-time in steals, a 6-time All-Star, World Series champion in '64 and '67. The numbers were incredible in the World Series, and a 1985 Baseball Hall of Fame inductee. Many remember Lou Brock for more of how he was as a person and not just a player, and that includes Cardinals president Bill DeWitt III.
He just was such a warm person, and it was true not just of me and people with the Cardinals, but everybody. And that's why I think you saw this outpouring of emotion when we lost Lou. And there's a few guys that we've been lucky enough to have in the Cardinals organization who not just have incredible playing careers, but then they, stay in St. Louis and raise families and become part of the community and give back. And Lou is just a perfect example of that. Just an electric player on the field, and kind of typified those great teams of the late '60s, early '70s. And so, he had sort of a brand, before that was something that people tried to, create for themselves, because he was the speedster, but he was also intellectual. He thought about base stealing as an art form, and something that isn't just because of speed. It's about more than that. It's about studying the pitcher and really getting cerebral about it. And I think that's one of his legacies, is really a thinking man's baseball player, but also just an electric athlete and a great guy.
Lou Brock's final 2 years in the big leagues were Ozzie Smith's first as a member of the Padres. But like Lou, Ozzie was traded to the Cardinals, and his Hall of Fame career took off. The Wizard sitting down with Jim Hayes recently to talk about the impact and legacy of Lou Brock.
When you look at Lou Brock, you never saw Lou without a smile, and especially when he was around people. And it was just something about his personality that really lent to the enjoyment that he had when he was around people, and how he understood the importance of his being and what it meant to people to be able to be in his presence. And it's something that he never took for granted. And I've never been around him a day where he wasn't smiling.
And as great a person as he is, what he did on the field, to be that durable, to be at that level for so long, I mean, it's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, it spoke for itself. He was a leader, and leaders lead by example. And each and every day that he went out there, you knew that something exciting was going to happen.
Lou Brock was obviously an unbelievable baseball player, Hall of Fame. He might have been as great a player as he was. He might have been a better human being, right?
That I think that kind of speaks to the type of organization that this is. When you look at it, I think starting with Stan, to Red, to Lou, to Bob, they're people that were always willing to give back. They were always a part of the community, which I think makes this organization so special, is that we were able to still touch those guys. They were real. For some organizations who have 3 or 4 guys that may be in the Hall of Fame, they're guys that have passed on, so people didn't have the opportunity to touch them. They didn't have the opportunity to see them out amongst them, amongst the community. And so in this place here, opening day is so much different here than it is anywhere else in the country, because of the ability for people to see their heroes that they watch growing up and being a part of it. And for the way baseball is looked upon here in this town, it'd be crazy not to follow the lead of guys who have been great. Their legacy lives on, and it's great to have a legacy that can live on long after you've passed on.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks to Ozzie for his kind words on Lou Brock. Whitey Herzog taking over as Cardinals manager in 1980, the first season without Lou in uniform, and carrying on the legacy of base stealing with the Runnin' Redbirds in the 1980s. Whitey on how impressed he was with Lou's toughness.
I wasn't lucky enough to get to manage him. Red got to do that.
And all the things I've heard about him, how tough he was, how good he was, 3,000 base hits, the stolen base leader. But as a human being, what a great guy he was. And all the adverse injuries and sicknesses that him and his wife went through the last few years. And every time I seen both of them at a function, their smiles were on their face. It just looked like they both enjoyed life to the fullest.
The base burglar, Lou Brock, 50 or more stolen bases in 12 consecutive seasons, including an MLB record 118 set in 1974. As we head to break, let's take you back to September 10th of 1974, his record-setting night.
He is going. The pitch is a strike. The throw, he is there. He did it! 105 for Lou Brock!
A line drive, base hit in the left center. He might be able to get a double out of it. He's around first. He's going to try for second. So Brock doubles in the left center.
Lou Brock rips in the Downing's first pitch. A tremendous drive and might be out of here. It could be. It is a home run.
It was one of the longest home runs I think I hit in my career. But inside fastball from Al Downing, and Al Downing said from that day forth he would never throw me another inside fastball, in which he never did. He threw me all sliders after that. But nevertheless, it was thrilling simply because it did put some cushion between the scores at the time.
Undoubtedly, Lou Brock, one of the greatest World Series performers in baseball history. A .391 batting average in the Fall Classic, highest all-time, minimum 20 games. 14 steals, still a World Series record. 13 hits in the 1968 World Series, tied for most in a single season. And none of that success in the World Series would have been possible without that famous trade on June 15th, 1964.
Because somewhere along the line, every player, there's a point in time whereby it becomes your moment in time where you have become a bona fide player, and you answer the question within yourself, can I play with these guys? Well, that happened to me as a Cub about 2 weeks before I was traded. The point came that I realized that I can play with these guys. Now I need to display my talent. And lo and behold, I get traded to St. Louis, where you got the spirit of the Cardinals to deal with and to ingest to even further fuel that kind of appealing.
The Brock for Broglio deal in the summer of 1964. One of the biggest trades, if not the biggest, in Cardinals history. But for some of his teammates back then, it was a trade they didn't want, and it caught them by surprise.
To me, the silliest trade we ever made was to trade a 21-game winner for somebody who nobody knew. We just didn't know. And when they traded Broglio for Brock, I said, man, this is not going to work. And Brock came over and put his uniform on. Everybody's kind of staring at him. And about 2 months later, we were all saying, hey, how come they didn't do this sooner?
Well, he was amazing. I remember him, getting on base so much. And when he got on base, things would roll. And of course, Curt Flood was here. Lou would get on base, and Curt would get him over to second or third, or get him in. If Lou hit a triple, he always moved the runner. But Lou was phenomenal getting on base and be able to steal bases.
And as Bob Gibson showed the way to the pitchers about how to perform, Lou Brock showed us how to run the bases. And we did it intuitively with Lou, because naturally we couldn't steal bases like Lou. Lou picked up, he was on base 14 times in a 7-game series. That's twice a game average. And he picked up from where he left off in 1964. What an electric player. I mean, a guy that just electrified crowds and the opposition.
Lou, he got us going. He got the team going. And we had a pretty good ball club, But we had a real good ball club after he came over to us because we needed somebody to kind of generate, we didn't have anybody steal any bases, and he raised so much havoc when he was on the bases that it destroyed those other pitching staff. You know, they were more concerned about him than they were about the hitter. And I think without Lou, we couldn't have done any of this stuff, period.
Lou leaving such a lasting impression on the Cardinals organization both during his playing career and well beyond. Something that Hall of Fame manager Tony La Russa didn't fully understand until joining the Cardinals in 1996, but quickly learned from the greats what it takes to be a Cardinal.
Those first days when I showed up with Dunk and Stott, and, a lot of the Oakland guys with our green bags, a lot of that legendary fraternity kind of gave us the Heisman. Gibby especially, kind of, hey man, you don't belong here, and are you sure you're coming up from the minor leagues? I hope you're good enough to play in the big leagues. This is the National League, that kind of stuff. Lou was the opposite. Lou embraced us right away and wished us well, and I always kind of looked at him at first, kind of doubted us. He's put me on, but he had a beautiful soul. He really did, and everybody over the years that came to know him realized that he was a dead game competitor, but he really was a good person with a beautiful heart.
Still much more to come on Remembering Lou, a tribute to the life and legacy of Cardinals great Lou Brock. Up next, more on the impact of Lou after his playing days. Stay with us.
He's going. The pitcher's high. The throw is safe. He stole it. The throw got by the shortstop, and Brock has done it. They would have thrown him out, but the shortstop couldn't handle the bad throw. And this is it, folks. Brock has now stolen 893.
You were in that moment, a very special moment in baseball. One was challenging the record, and not only that you confront the record, challenge the record, then there was the celebration of the record. So when I hear that, that meant that we were celebrating an accomplishment.
It's not been an easy thing, but the moment is here. And all I can say, looking back on it, Randy, I did it my way.
What a moment. August 29th, 1977. Lou Brock breaking Ty Cobb's all-time stolen base record. One of the many historic feats by Lou during his Cardinals career. Cardinals owner Bill DeWitt Jr. talks about Lou as a competitor and a person.
He was an intense competitor, and that meant beating the other team. So, if somebody put a tough tag on him, I don't think he was too happy about it. But off the field, he was as nice as they come, and, really a gentle guy and great personality. But, what made him great was his intellect for the game, of course, his natural talent, but the fact that he was a great student of the game.
The 2-2 pitch, breaking ball, hit off the pitcher, to the third baseman, no play, base hit, 3,000 for Lou Brock.
To hit means you could be or not to be in the big leagues. That's what it actually meant. If you don't hit, you're not going to be there. So I had the ability to hit. And at the same time, 3,000 hits was the crown of my career. I don't know how many other things that may be some milestones, but they become stars within the crown. And so I look at that as a tremendous achievement as an individual point of view. And so you pump that out, you put that out against the 17,000 men that play the game, and then, full well where he ranks in history. And he ranks in history of the 14th guy to do it. But again, that was one of the most impressive things for me to realize that all the players that play the game, here come a guy who's the 14th to do this. So he put you in the ranks with the Musio, Willie Mays, and those kind of guys.
August 13th, 1979. Lou Brock becomes the 14th member of the 3,000 hit club. The Cardinals retiring his number 20 before the end of that season. his last as a player. Lou inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1985, his first year on the ballot, and becoming a member of that exclusive Red Jacket Club. Year after year, Lou and the fellow Hall of Famers celebrating opening days and playoff moments at Busch Stadium. And even in his later years, Lou showing so much resilience and toughness, specifically on opening day in 2016. Lou throwing out the ceremonial first pitch, less than a year after his left leg was partially amputated. Lou's former teammate, Tim McCarver, with more on the toughness of Sweet Lou.
Always a stand-up slide. Never head first, never went head first back into first base. I never saw him in the trainer's room. Now, think about the guy who ran the bases with such violence, and I mean violent. I took it in the left side of my rib cage. I thought my rib was broken. I couldn't breathe. I was almost knocked out to end the game when I was with the Phillies. His strength was legendary in a 130-pound body. You know, you don't think that Lou Brock, with the way he played, was a dear man. But that is exactly how we knew him. He was a marvelous teammate. He helped you whenever he could. Rarely was a time we won a game that Lou wasn't involved in some way. Rarely.
Thanks for joining us for this look back at one of the greatest Cardinals ever, Lou Brock. He'll be remembered for what he did between the white lines, but for what he did also off the field, his impact made in the St. Louis community. Once again, thank you for joining us and remembering the great life of Lou Brock. And as we say goodnight, we take you back to 1985 in his Hall of Fame speech in Cooperstown.
You know, the dream of every professional athlete is to leave his mark upon his chosen sports. The desire of every professional athlete is to blaze a trail that is so long and wide that it would take a person to perform at a Hall of Fame level just to measure up. When I heard baseball games, I felt in harmony with it. My spirit was sore, and I believed that one day there would come a day when my life would be different and I too would be right out there on that field of play. But whatever it is about baseball that touches a person's soul, it has a magical, transforming power that allows the individual to escape the oppression of his immediate self. For you see, in my mind, I existed as a major league ball player, while in fact, I was living the most ordinary of lives. And now, I feel proud to take my seat among the greatest players ever to play Major League Baseball.